Welcome back. It's been a while. Today we'll do City of Threads plus 12 on Mythic as Master of Harmony. This is my route. I'll explain it as we go along. It's a little bit different. Same gear. I opted to go back to the two one-handers. Same two defensive trinkets. My talents changed. I took out the 2 points in high tolerance to go down the
Lesson of
Black
the
Ox
Void.
stance route. So instead of going straight for the buff there, we don't have an engineer or rogue or
You've
priest. So we
arrived.
go left
Our friend
and
awaits you
we
in the High
go into
Hollows.
this first Herald of Ansarak. I feel like this is faster than going for the buff and then the 4 pack, just because if you have enough interrupts, the damage here is very minimal. You don't have to deal with the two casters and then having to round them up. We do have a DK who could have gripped them into us, but it was a little bit pointless because we weren't able to get the buff either way.
Interrupt.
So I feel like this is still viable. It's a viable route. After we get this, as you can see, we pretty much got all of the kicks off there. We missed this one here, I think, but that's fine. It was dead. And now we go into the regular route again. Swarm guard, pretty simple.
Frontal.
The damage was pretty good considering the fact that it was all melee. So I thought that it might be a little bit harder having to deal with 4 melee. But the healer did pretty good and the DPS did pretty good. And again, doing my duties as a tank to make sure that I can toss out some heals if I don't need them.
Frontal.
As you can see now, I added the weak aura to see my teammates interrupts. But like that was something that I really needed to get, and mainly because it's really hard for a Brewmaster to get into these 12s. So I did a lot of them and failed a lot of them,
Frontal.
and I started to notice that there were certain things that I needed so that I can kind of see how I can improve in tanking these dungeons. It's a huge leap from an 11 to a 12. Definitely in the damage you take and the damage that's needed to take some of these down in order to time them. I will say that DPS is definitely important here. There's no other way about it. Even if you do big pulls, which you kind of can't really do here until after the second boss, the DPS just has to be good. So again here, we skip that buff. I'm pinging them so that they know that they have to interrupt. I'll interrupt the first one normally just to make sure that it comes into me. And then I try to depend on my DPS. Something you'll kind of notice is that I've been using a lot more of my defensives. Normally I would try to save them for tank busters or moments where I feel like I'll take a lot of damage.
Frontal.
But I've been doing a lot of 12s, and I realized that I need to use my defensives a lot more. Here, that was a good double grip from the DK.
Frontal.
He probably would have got one shot there. I've also tried to play as a Shadowpan Brewmaster, but it's difficult just not having the extra Celestial Brew cooldown. I know Shadowpan gets an extra 10% damage reduction,
Frontal.
but I feel like this extra Celestial Brew is invaluable, especially when you need an extra defensive. Sure, 10% damage reduction is great, but sometimes, having an extra Celestial Brew will probably do a lot better. Again, trying to collect aggro here. I want to make sure I take care of these before I pull the next little ads. Here, I don't know if it was a graphical glitch, but I got knocked back. I don't know how. And I intentionally had to make sure I get aggro on all of them. Since we're all melee DPS, there's nowhere for them to run pretty much. And still making sure that we get the interrupts. So it became a little bit chaotic. This was probably one of like 2 or 3 spots where we got a little bit crazy. But the DPS and the
Frontal.
healer were like on top of their interrupts, and that definitely helped. I have done this on the 12 before, and we've definitely wiped here and ended the run because we don't get any kicks off. So that's part of why from 11 to 12 it tends to be a bit harder, just because it requires a lot more from everyone, not just the tank or the healer. Everybody kind of has to do their part, and you'll see later on what I mean by that. Here I'm telling them to stack on me after the boss does its AoE or during, just because it's easier for me to move the boss and not have anyone get dragged behind and then killed.
Defensive. Frontal.
I wasn't too sure what happened with the DK DPS there, but his DPS was pretty low compared to
Defensive.
everyone else. I don't know if he died. I mean, well, he didn't die, but I don't know if he was just lagging or something. But this is by the group synergy being good. The DK drops his AMZ to
Defensive.
help with the damage intake for the group, and everybody
Frontal.
kind of stands in front where I'm at so that I can move the boss. It makes it so much easier, just because I can
Frontal.
Tiger's Lust myself and then taunt the boss to speed him up with AC
Defensive.
provocation, so he moves a lot faster. You'll see it right now. So I'm pinging for them to stand on me, Tiger's Lust into taunt, and you see how fast the boss is moving? It's moving faster
Defensive.
than the black pool can kind of grow out.
Frontal.
So I guess that's something else that we kind of have that's a plus, but still doesn't make up for a lot of the things that we kind of
Frontal.
need. But it's
Defensive.
those little things like that that if you pay attention to, it makes everyone else's life a lot easier. So again, Tiger's Lust and then taunt, and then you start running away sideways. Never give your back to the boss because you don't want to get two shot.
Defensive.
But Tiger's Lust into taunt. I
Frontal.
expect also so that my Tiger's Lust improves this movement speed of two others by 20%. So I don't know if the healer or the DPS are also getting the speed boost.
Defensive.
But it's pretty convenient. Again, everybody's under the AMZ. DPS doing their part, and Tiger's Lust into Proton, and it's easy.
Defensive. Frontal. Frontal.
Something I also did a lot more here was pay attention to those
Defensive.
orbs. I did wipe us in one of these 12s I did last week because I didn't pay attention to one of the DPS who had the orbs, and I got stunned and I was immediately destroyed by the boss. So here's a cool little trick that I saw Tank do a long time ago. So you start this mini, and then you move up and you target the Eye of the Queen and you Jade Lightning him, so you activate him. Here I got hit by that, but that's fine.
Watch your
And then
step.
you just taunt him. And it's so that while you're DPSing the mini boss, you're also getting some DPS into this ad. It speeds it up. But here, two of our DPS die. I don't know how they died there. I think they got hit by the frontal. Is my best guess. So we were down to 2 DPS for a little bit while they ran back. But this Death Knight was definitely trying his best to pump out some damage. The healer as well. This healer was really good. I wasn't gonna say that I was shocked, but I was very comfortable tanking with this shaman. So as soon as I see that the 2 DPS are coming, I get the idea of trying to start moving the ad. Just again so that we can cover a little bit more ground. We're already a little bit behind, as you can see, by 0.41 seconds. So 41 seconds, we're already behind on my timer there on the top. So I figured we can start moving the ad and see if we can recoup some time somehow. But this is kind of like minimal stuff. It's not gonna be like mythic breaking if you just start moving the ad. Like no, but you know it's also so you can keep yourself a little bit active and you can kind of always stay on your toes and know what you're doing. There, I executed it. I used my execute a lot more. Here, there's a couple of routes. I noticed that it was going to the right, and I thought it was going to the house. Or, I noticed that that was wrong. Normally back there where I ping. But it wasn't there. It was a different route that I haven't had in a while. It's behind the house. So everybody else is pinging me, and I'm trying to go back into the house. So I cost us a couple of seconds there. So this is one route that I barely get. I normally either get inside the house or behind the first house down the stairs. But as soon as I got this one behind the house, I kind of figured I knew where the route was heading. There's usually 3 that you can get. So after we killed these, I more or less had an idea where we were going. Because the next Eye of the Queen after this one is pretty close by, so it wasn't so bad, I guess. But still, these are kind of the things that you have to keep in mind. You kind of have to know the spawn areas of these eyes to kind of speed everything up to prevent time loss from just like looking around. You already kind of know that if you see the shadows going one way, you know that the ad is going to be in a certain place. Because, for example, the one that's inside the house takes you all the way around here and then inside if you follow the shadow, when you could just easily go through the front door and know that it's there. So here, this eye is right behind this pillar. And again, it's one that I haven't gotten in a while, but it's so close, so I guess we kind of made up a little bit of time there.
Interrupt.
And this time I try to stay on the caster just so that if I'm pumping more damage into it, maybe it'll die faster and I can interrupt it, and we don't have to worry about using a lot of interrupts. As you can see there, 3 of us kind of used our interrupt on that one, and then two of ours used their interrupts on that one. So that weak aura was probably one of the better ideas I've had. I think I do need to get the one that tells me my teammates' DPS cooldowns. That's probably the next one I'm going to get. Just because I want to know when I can pull bigger packs. And just so that I know, for example, like my healer's cooldowns. So I know that I always have one defensive up most of the time. Just because I have the Taunt Absorb Trinket and Molten Furnace. Which hopefully by the end of this week I should have the hero track one. I just need 6 more keys from Heroic Black Rock's Death. But that's 2 bosses and 1 trash mini boss that would give me the keys to get it. It sounds a little bit silly because I know most Brewmasters use 1 DPS trinket at least with 1 tank. But just for the safety of it all, I just kind of needed to make sure that I have that extra defensive. And it really comes in handy. So here again, it's another new spawn for me that I haven't done in a while. I remember getting this one when I was probably running this place in like a 7 or an 8. So that's probably like a month or 2 ago. But it's always nice to get a different route, I guess. What I would have wanted to do here, and maybe if you have Discord with your team, you can let the healer know as soon as you're down to 1 ad or 2 ads. You can let the healer know that they can run up to the NPC that starts the RP, just so that as soon as this Eye of the Queen dies, the guy starts moving up. Because here we waste time, or it's a couple of seconds are lost here. Let's see, I think it's roughly like we've already lost 5.
Your target is the Grand Splicer, ISO.
We've already lost like 10 seconds. And then from there, for me to move around, should have followed the DK, but I was being a little bit dumb. So we've already lost like 10, 11 seconds, and who knows? Those 10, 11 seconds are deaf or something. So I guess things like that kind of make a difference. Here, I'm letting them know to bait it against the wall for when they do the synergy step, synergetic step.
The transformatory was once the home of our secret
It's just because they kind of, I don't want to say they bounce into the wall, but they stop at the wall, and since we're all melee, it allows us to continue DPSing. I think we get it right about 2 or 3 of the 4 times that it happens. So that's pretty good.
First, your little pets will die. Then we'll make you
Another problem that we run into here is that people tend to stack up during that transition, and everybody gets in, I want to say, a nice spear thrown at them, and if you're stacking and you get hit with 2 of those, you're dead.
Frontal.
So I let them know not to stack up. Like, spread along the wall, but don't stack up. The icicles right there. So we spread out, and then we all move a little bit closer to the wall, just because we know that there's the synergetic step, the synergic step. So you can see they don't go anywhere because they have nowhere to go. So we can continue to DPS. Normally you would be able to do this probably 2 or 3 times if you're lucky 3, just because it's harder to move them when they're doing the range attacks as soon as they get to the middle, as you'll see right now. So here I'm trying to stack them up. So here we're all stacked together because we're melee, so it makes this a lot easier. If it's possible for ranged DPS to come in a little bit closer, if you have any range in your group, that definitely helps. But I'm using a defensive there. I had my Celestial Brew up to help me out there. Here I'm trying to ping them to go up against the wall, but we're a little bit late on that. But there, as you can see, they bounced off a little bit, and this one stayed closer to us, again because we're all by the wall. So it definitely helps, just because there's very minimal downtime on your DPS.
My turn.
And always stacking them up to make sure that they take more damage, since they share the same health pool. If you look at the moving purple swirls on the bottom, you can stand on those. You don't take damage. It's just where the frontal is going to come out of. So it's more of, so you can pay attention to where the frontal comes out of. There, our monk wasn't really paying too much attention, I guess, and he got hit with the frontal. We got him up, so we're doing pretty good. This one we messed up badly. I think we lost a couple of time, a good bit of time here, just because we're all running around after them. But again, you can stand on the purple pools. They don't do anything to you. It's just so you know that that's where the frontal comes out of.
It's my turn. Your blood will freeze.
Here I use my diffuse magic just to help with the magic damage there, and then dragging them close together.
AOE incoming.
Darkness consume.
It's a bit tricky there because I got the debuff and then the AoE circle, so you can probably wipe there if you're not paying too much attention. Again, Synergic Step. We failed this one as well. But we're DPSing them, they're pretty low. We're pretty confident that we're going to kill them soon enough. Nothing new, and again, those circles are just so that you know that that's where the frontals come out of, as you can see. You can step on them, you take no damage. Luckily we got like a good RNG spawn on those frontals.
AOE incoming.
Here I was like, I'm gonna get the execute hopefully before the AoE goes off, and I got it.
Thank you. Would that I could do more to repay you, but this is as far as I go.
Now in the map, as you'll see, these pools can be separated. So just because you get a stacking debuff that allows their abilities to hit you harder, so you don't want to stack too many of them, and you also should kite if you don't have a lot of defensives. It's just for the sake of making sure that you don't get killed. You're sure you can collect all of them, but you're probably gonna take a lot of damage. So here I'm rounding them all up, but I noticed that the Marauder back there is still up and he's slow. So I want to make sure that I bring them all to that. I appreciate that the other monk tried to knock that pursuer into us with his Ring of Peace. Here we only have one that up, so I decided to pull the next pack. I'm just trying to gauge and make sure that I do it when it's a little bit lower, just to avoid dying. So I pretty much picked this route just because I know that it's safe. We can get the count, and you just need interrupts, and you'll be fine. If your team can interrupt, you're fine. Which is kind of hard to find in a lot of these pugs because people kind of are still stuck in that tense mentality where you can just interrupt once in a while and you'll be fine because the abilities won't one-shot you. Here, you take one cast to the face and you're at 10%, and it makes the healer's life difficult. As you can see, I already have a few debuffs on me. I'm taking quite a bit of damage. I was at 164% stagger there, if you notice my bar in the middle of the screen. That's a lot of damage that I was taking and also staggering. And it's part of the reason why I kind of went Ox stance. I figured that it would definitely help a lot in pulling these big mob packs. This went a little bit janky just because we didn't interrupt as much, I think, to get them in. And a little bit of a problem that we have is when you don't have voice chat is that you don't know who interrupts what. You can have two people interrupt the same thing, and then that's a problem. There I interrupted the same person with the other monk, I think. Just constantly pulling. One of the things that I kind of been practicing is walking back a little bit to line up the mobs, just so that, for example, all of our abilities deal frontal damage on the cone. So you line them up and it's more damage. So they're a little bit low. I dragged the boss, this mini Venom Shell, into them. The damage was pretty good, as you can see. Everybody's over 2 million in that whole line of packs of pulls.
Frontal.
Trying to look at where I can throw my Vivify. And there, I'll be honest, I kind of fell asleep a little bit, and I would have got hit by the green puddle if I didn't notice it like last minute. I need to work on not getting too distracted when I'm trying to throw a heal out when there's AoE pools and stuff like that going on, because I could definitely die quick. Here I pick everything up. I drop my Black Axe statue just to get threat on this big guy. And again, moving in for the interrupts whenever I can. I have my leg sweep still up, so I'll try to use it whenever I get both of these casters to start casting. Then I'll use it. I know we have already interrupted them, but there I stunned them, and then into a knockup. So it's like the chain CCs that we have were pretty good too. That kind of helped out a lot. So while this big ad is still up and he does the Dark Barrage, I go in here and I take these droplets. So I just get enough aggro on them and then drop my statue there so I can keep them in place. My statue is generating enough threat to make sure that they stay there. I could have dragged them up there, but it would have just made a mess of them. As you can see, they start going everywhere. But my statue there makes sure that it holds them in place, and then my team comes and just dispatches of them. And again, just moving backwards little by little to line them all up so that all of my abilities deal more damage to them. And this boss is a pain. Just because if you take too many orbs, you're dead. And you'll see that I get really low in one section. I get really low.
Defensive.
I think I was pretty much dead, but I don't know what saved me. Because I soaked up 3 orbs and I was taking too much damage. But the group was really good. As you can see, they absorb everything. They're on top of everything.
Help so.
And just constantly running him around clockwise around the room, making sure I don't stand in any of the puddles when I take any of the orbs. There I took one, I probably shouldn't have.
AOE incoming.
But the healer on top of her things, Spirit Link with a healing tide, kept us all alive there. Definitely big props to this healer. He did really well. This is normally a fight that would wipe a lot of groups, just because it's a lot of AoE damage tied in together with healing absorbs, so that's a problem. There I stood in the puddle for way too long. And again, me falling asleep at the wheel, I guess as you would say. The monk was definitely pumping 1.2 million DPS. I don't think he ever moved away from the boss. There, my camera got caught on the top of the ceiling, so it was a bit silly. Here I'm trying to throw out any heals that I can, but the healer again, crazy healing. I wish I had a details meter for her healing there.
Help so. Defensive.
There he took one of the orbs, nobody got it, so he healed for 3%. But at this point we were all pretty much just done with him, so
watch your step.
It wasn't too bad. And I'm moving in, trying to get the execute here. As you'll see, I'll start spamming the button. And that was that. That was pretty clean, other than the fact that one of the orbs got there. So here you round all of these up, and as soon as you have good enough thread on them where you know that they won't kill any DPS, because you can see the paladin bopped himself there. I think he almost got hit by something. But once I have a good enough thread and they're a little bit low, I'll run a little bit past the doorway just to activate the RP event. Just so that we don't have to wait the extra 4 or 5 seconds for the ad to transform before we pull it. As soon as this one dies, I let him know with my horrible typing. As you can see, like, constantly under pressure from the timing of these mythics. So I just let him know to make sure that they interrupt as soon as I taunt it, just so that it can move closer to us and we don't pull the big ad over there. So again, hasty provocation, shaman, really good interrupt. And here we're positioned pretty well. So we're all stacking. Free myself there, but the DPS is pretty good, so everybody else is off their route. Then on to the next one. So when you pull this one, try to make sure that he's away from the sensor, just because as soon as he dies, the boss drops. And you want to give your healer a chance to at least drink, right? You don't want to go into the boss with 50% mana, which has happened to me before, and it's wiped us, destroyed us. So there I'm keeping an eye on the spawn of the scarabs. So as soon as the swirlies show up, I try to position myself as close to the group that has the most. I can always taunt the one that's farthest away, as you'll see right now. So there I see there's 3 back there. And then the one I get close to it and I taunt it. And then get back on the one that's a little bit far away. I execute that one just to get it out of the way. What I had happen in one of my previous runs was an Earthbind totem was close to the middle and it pulled the boss, but one of our DPS was down. And we wiped it as soon as that happened, just because we had no battle res and we weren't going to kill it with 2 DPS. And that ultimately ended up costing us the run. In the time it took us to get back, we killed the boss, and it was a
Run.
we went over the timer by 2 seconds pretty much. So here we collect all the scarabs and we're DPSing them, and the healer asks us to kill them all just so that she can drink. So we're trying. I'm keeping an eye on her as well and her mana after she starts to drink. As soon as I see that she's good, then we go in. But I don't think she drank. I think she used something else for it. And letting them know to lust as soon as we pull, and here we go. So I pull the splicer to the side so that when the orbs show up, I can just pull her following the little hexagon in the middle, right? So the DPS should normally stay on the right like they're doing there, and then we just walk around. Stacking on the weave. The DPS were really on their stuff today here.
Watch your
So I move around following the hexagon, and they stand on the outer part just so they can avoid getting hit by it. I mess up here and I kill with the monk when I get hit with the 3 orbs. I didn't want to roll away too far, and the monk kind of moved away a little bit too late, so he dies. You'll see it right now.
defensive.
Right here. He gets clipped right there as I'm walking towards him. Just barely clips him. I thought that cost us the run. We only had 2 minutes 50 seconds left, and I don't think we were going to do it with 2 DPS, but we had a battle res.
Watch your
And this is all you pretty much have to do. Just kite her around in the circle. If your DPS can stay on the outside, you're good. Hear all of the scarabs.
watch your
We're pretty close by, and the DPS and the healer are just staying away from everything. It's fairly easy.
watch your stack.
Here was a little bit dangerous because we were stacked too close to the orbs. If we didn't get them down in time, we probably would have died to them right there.
Defensive.
Here I made sure to stay away, fortifying brew to help.
Watch your
As soon as the orbs spawn, you just move away. Following the hexagon, that's all you have to do. There's really no amazing strategy other than that. And the DPS just moves along as well.
watch your
Black Ox statue definitely help here, as you can see, helping generate threat. They can become a pain in the butt, especially if they get on the DPS. And since we're all melee,
yeah.
it's definitely hard. Here we kind of stacked a little bit awkward, I think.
Watch your defensive.
Here I'm moving away, using a defensive there.
Watch your
And that's basically it. If you can dodge all of the orbs
Incoming.
and stack up during the Umbral Weave and use defensives during the AoE, you're good. And that's that. City of Threads plus 12 on Mythic.
Onslaught will be
Um,
absolutely
I probably
furious
failed this
when
one
she
about
learns of
five
Isaac's
or
demise.
five times before I finally got it down.
Cannot wait to witness
So
it.
I don't know if I'm tapped out as a Brewmaster pugging these Mythics, but these 12s are definitely hard. This, the damage and the healing done. Shout out to the Chamois Healer. See you in the next one.